Episode 16, The Second Great Flood. Chapter 16, The Second Great Flood. The burning candles filled his lungs with their smoke. At the start of this, it had been a pleasant scent. But with all the chanting, the bells, the heavy rain outside, the disorientation of having himself blindfolded and led all over the place until coming in here, now that scent was crushing, oppressing his lungs with their smell. Jin tried to tough it out as long as he could, but there was a twitch somewhere inside and he fell into a fit of coughing. What was that? Was it a sign of the end? Not now, no, he hadn't even gotten through this. With one last clang of the bells, the blindfold got ripped off his face. He found himself kneeling in a dark room, those candles painfully bright little spots of light to his suddenly open eyes. A number of the Gaian monks were around him for this initiation. There was also a strange demon along, a naked man mounted on a flying snake, or perhaps that snake was a part of him. One of the humans, dressed in black and gold, came forward and offered him a black emblem with a gold pentagram.
"Welcome to the mysteries of the Gaian inner circle," he said. "With study and meditation, the secrets of the universe will open up to you."
There was something he hadn't mentioned to them so far, but it felt important.
"I don't have time for that,"
he said, his lungs already worn out from the smoke.
"My days are severely numbered. All I can do—"
He was forced to stop and cough, then try to get his voice back without breathing in too much,
"is one final act to ensure that the Messiah's God does not descend now." "Unfortunately, he is right,"
the demon said, coming in closer. He offered a hand down to Jin.
"Are you willing to make that the goal of your final hour?"
The air was burning, his head was fuzzy. For lack of any words right then, he clasped the demon's hands in both of his and brought them to his forehead in a reverential bow before allowing himself to get back on his feet.
"You'll have to keep out of most of the invasion in order to reserve your strength for fighting the Messiah,"
the demon said.
"But in recognition of your selflessness, we will do all we can to ensure you get there." "Yes, we promise to as well,"
the Gaian monk leading the initiation said. Leaving the room was a haze, but at least it got him out of that smoke. Ri was quick to greet him, kissing him on the cheek of his armor and taking his hand. It was clear that she'd give him much more if he wanted, but the ceremony had wiped him out. As much as he didn't want to die, it felt like he was already dying. The temple was bustling with activity. They had their road into the cathedral's lower levels, a workers' ferry that had been left unlocked on what was left of the docks. While it would be slow to ferry everyone over in batches, they were able to use it to get a few hackers over to get the authorization codes for the terminals. With that, getting inside was the easy part. The Messians would be busy at the bridges, counting their flock and guiding them to where they would be staying. Jin would have liked to help with the invasion, but his whole body ached and he had to be reserved for his final task. Final. He dropped down on the ground in one of the outer halls, sitting against the wall where there wasn't as much noise or bustle. Jin wanted to go find somewhere to take a nap, but he was disoriented still. Not questioning it, Ri sat by him and snuggled close.
"You sure you don't want somewhere more private?"
she asked flirtatiously. Jin shook his head, not feeling up to it. He pulled his knees up into his arms and put his head there. Why? The question wouldn't leave his mind no matter how he tried to get around it. It was clear that it had been a mistake to go through with the fusion now. Which meant, it was his own fault for being so stubborn about it and not listening to his friends. His friends? Even Alan? He was a fool for sticking with the Messian Church. And yet, he had been authentically concerned on hearing about this death. Yeah, Alan was stupidly naively honest, but he was honest and couldn't hide his feelings at all.
If you're going to be a pillbug, I can't stroke you,
Ri said, still teasing him.
Stop it,
he said hoarsely, brushing her away with his hand.
Ah, please.
She asked, leaning on him.
Don't you want to get the most out of your time? I said no,
Jin said, feeling a streak of extra pain because he had nearly yelled at her.
Goddamn! You're too much. Humph, one would think a girl like me would be any man's fantasy,
she asked.
But someone's coming, you win for the moment.
She stopped leaning on him, which did help.
Jin,
Kazuya said, coming over with hurried steps. He brought his head up suddenly, too quickly. It was him, and Yuka, and a familiar-looking demon.
Kaz? Yuka? What are you doing here? You could.
His lungs twitched and he coughed.
Sorry. You'll get in trouble. We can handle what trouble comes,
Yuka said.
But Alan said that you were dying, so we had to come find you right away. He told you that?
Jin asked, more embarrassed than angry. Nearby, his guillotine scorpion hissed softly at Cerberus. The three-headed beast was considering the scorpion warily.
I'm fine. Just, they had so many candles. Didn't know breathing in a nice scent like that could hurt so much.
He reached over and tugged his demon aside.
Chill, they're good people. He still worries about you, despite how much you two have argued in the past,
Kazuya said, waving to Cerberus and getting immediate obedience and not triggering a fight. Guillotine Scorpion gazed hard at them a moment longer before moving closer to Jin's side.
And I'm worried for both of you getting in over your heads. What are you doing here? We're gonna go take that damn cathedral down,
Jin said.
We?
Right, they hadn't met yet.
Well, this is my new partner, Ri, and the two of us will be helping by.
But should he say that? Kazuya would not like what he had been asked to do.
You don't have to tell us now if you don't want to, but please don't act rashly, even with your situation,
Kazuya said.
I wish I could have done more for you, I feel like I haven't done enough.
Jin felt like he should be mad about the patronizing, but he was just embarrassed.
Don't fret so much over me, geez. I want to do one great thing with my life and they're giving me a chance at that. I'll be fine. You sure about that?
When he nodded, Kazuya put a hand on his knee.
All right, but know that I'll help you if you need it. Just find me. As you're intent on making a last stand, make sure that it counts. Yeah, got it,
he said. Although, he doubted that Kazuya would actually help him kill Alan. It was still reassuring to know Kazuya had his back. He really was someone to count on. Kazuya smiled at him.
Good. You want to talk about anything now? Nah, don't you have better things to be doing?
Jin said.
And I'm not kidding about you getting in trouble. These guys are suspicious of your motives in lending the robots to everyone. They'd raise hell if they found you here in their temple. We can still teleport out if we have to,
Yuka said.
Right, but we should get to warning the last towns,
Kazuya said.
It's going to be a long night. Jin.
He didn't seem sure of what to say for a moment.
I'll always consider you a good friend, like a little brother. Hey, don't go making me weepy,
Jin said.
But, thanks, big brother. If I'd met you earlier, maybe things would be different. But we have to work with how things are now. You two take care of each other, all right? Sure, you too,
Kazuya said.
I hope we get to see you again.
As they left, Jin felt a feeling like peace. Maybe he only had one last act in him, but it felt like... Should he really do it? Alan, he was worried, Kazuya wouldn't lie about that. At least the fear in him was subsiding. There was still some time to consider what to do.
Humph, did he really not recognize me?
Ri asked, for some reason sounding mad.
Ri.
He watched as she stood up. She didn't look back.
What is it going to take to change his mind? What are you talking about?
He asked. She grunted.
It doesn't matter, you wouldn't understand. You couldn't even make him jealous, he just completely ignored me over you. This was all a waste of time, maybe I should wait for his next incarnation again.
And then she walked off in the opposite direction Kazuya and Yuka had gone.
Wait, Ri.
He tried to get up to follow her, but got dizzy when he stood up. Jin put his hands against the wall to steady himself and then she is gone. She didn't come back.
Just. Who else is using me?
He slumped back down and curled back up until Ashtoreth came looking for him. At least he could still rely on Kazuya and Yuka, if it came down to it. And his scorpion, the demon, wouldn't get what was going on, but it stayed by his side. It even started brushing up his armor plates instead of its own, taking care of him as best it knew how. Maybe he could rely on Alan too? When the city woke up the next morning, the rain had grown heavier. There was still a crowd at the bridge across to the cathedral. The lights here had been designed to cut down on light pollution, leaving the vast heights of the building obscured in darkness until lightning briefly lit the golden spires. In the cold biting rain, people felt nervous. The priests called out more members to keep everyone calm, sending them inside in an orderly fashion.
Do you believe in God?
The priest at the end of the bridge asked. Laps of rising water could be heard through the thick rain.
Yes,
the woman there said. She offered no crucifix nor said anything more, just tugged at her child's hand.
Yes,
the child echoed, keeping close out of fear.
Go on,
the priest said, then asked the same of the next. There was no time to verify, they couldn't leave any believers behind. Far below, in the floor surrounded by the bay's waters, Jin was lying on a couch. He had been trying to sleep all night, but hadn't managed it yet. If it wasn't his mind racing in trying to sort everything out, it was his body with pains that took up his whole awareness. He had made some plans, but was still trying to figure out what else might happen and what he could do. But more than that, he had done some serious thinking. About what he had done, what he had become. And that left him with new questions and no more time to answer them. A demon came by and nudged him, one of the 4 big generals for this invasion force.
Come on, it's time for your part.
Then, he was already dead, just waiting for that final moment. He opened his eyes and sat up. When Ashtoreth gave him a questioning look, Jin nodded.
Good. We already hold half of this cathedral, the basements. We're in the 8th one now, and your target is up at the peak on the 8th floor above the waters. But we've decided, we'd rather just take over the whole place and transform it into the greatest temple ever seen. We'll exclude that jealous monster and let all the other gods rule here fairly.
He chuckled.
But they'll have to recognize that those of us who actually participated would be more fair than the rest.
Jin wondered if he could really throw away his last act of life like this. Far above, Haniel paced and watched over Alan as he knelt in the center of a large circular platform jutting out far into the air from the central tower. Alan hadn't slept either, he was fighting weariness to keep going. After summoning Vishnu, he had been given a ritual cleansing, then brought out here to pray for God's return into the world. When the thunder quieted, he could just about hear the turbulent waters far below him. Much louder were the turbulent waters falling all around, trying to crush him down.
Haniel,
Alan said, putting his hands together so he could slip them into the long sleeves. It was nearly freezing out here.
God promised that he wouldn't flood the world again. Things were meant to continue improving in humanity,
Haniel said.
You trust God's word and wisdom.
Alan closed his eyes and bowed his head.
Alan. I trust God,
he said briefly, looking upwards and the giant golden cross. Lightning fired up, making it flash starkly across the rumbling clouds. Alan returned his focus inward and prayed. Fights broke out throughout the cathedral's vast halls. The demons struck upwards, seeking to clear a path for their hero. The angels spread out, seeking to defend the highest tower for their hero. Down on the ground floor, the humans taking refuge gathered together and tried to encourage each other. It wasn't clear what was going to happen. And out in the city, out in the empty ruins that the humans had abandoned, the water stretched over the land, growing deeper by the minute. Two figures held hands, running towards a rogue set of lights in the darkness. A black crow flew with them, untroubled by the rain. There was one last thing to take care of in the city. In a place central to the city, specifically central to the shrines of the four heavenly kings, Vishnu had set up a ring of tall torches. Their fires crackled and hissed in the rain, but did not go out. The four-armed god was dancing in the center of them, weaving a lengthy counter to the shield of the Japanese gods. But every time the counter slipped out of the ring of torches, it was shredded by the many-faced god Ravana. When the counter was short again, Ravana paced around the outside, looking for some crack to break open. Vishnu kept dancing, not heeding what his enemy was doing.
Ravana first,
Yuka whispered as they slowed.
I would have rather done in Vishnu first since he's the one attacking the king's shield over Japan,
Kazuya said.
Since it's like this, yeah, we have to take out Ravana first.
He held a hand out for Yagatarasu to land on briefly.
Can you disrupt the counter spell when we distract Ravana? Yes, but he might not ignore me,
the crow said.
I don't mind the risk. Thank you,
Kazuya said, not sure how long Vishnu would need to break the shield without Ravana disrupting him. He let go of Yuka's hand to make it easier on both of them to fight, then approached Ravana.
We're here to stop you,
Kazuya told him.
Humph, so you've taken the coward's way and sided with the mad creator?
Ravana asked with at least 4 faces, turning his attention and many eyes to them.
Not that it will end up mattering, since I can crush you both like flies easily. Not as easily as you think, Yuka said. Ravana leapt over to pummel her with several fists. Kazuya got in the way and deflected his blows, cutting across nearly every knuckle.
The way Ravana made the movements of his limbs and faces flow smoothly despite savage attacks was impressive, but Masakato had taught Kazuya how to fight gods. The single most important thing was to remain confident. Many gods of the world fought humanity through intimidation, fear, and faith. With their words and presence, they tried to inflict doubts in oneself and inspire odd faith in them. Once a person was aware of that, reserving one's doubts for the god put the battle in one's favor. It was less how well one fought and more how well one could maintain the willpower to remain in battle and win. The high ground they were on was slick with mud when Ravana fell, puddles were joining together under the increasing rain. Vishnu slowed in his dance, spellcrafting to face them.
Thank you for taking out that pest, you are an incredible fighter. Now if you could just take care of the crow, I should have this handled soon. No, we won't do that,
Kazuya said, stepping into the ring of torches with Yuka. That startled Vishnu enough that his moves shifted out of a pattern.
But, you've taken out Ravana here when all faithful humans should be taking shelter in the cathedral. I've got to do this so that the true God can return. What are you doing here? Stopping both of you,
he said.
The shield of the Japanese gods should remain. Oh, you're a serious nationalist,
Vishnu said.
My apologies, I would honor you greatly otherwise, but now I must kill you to complete my task.
He summoned 2 swords, but attacked them with Masyodine. Since he had stopped with the counter spell, Yagatarasu could fly in the way they had entered to join the battle. It took more coordination between them since Kazuya only had the single katana and his handgun to face off against the 2 swords. But there was no doubt in them. They had taken out Ravana, who was equally matched to Vishnu. They would defeat him too. And did. When Vishnu fell, the torches were instantly extinguished. Yagatarasu landed on one.
Echidna is coming directly here since Ravana fell,
he said.
We can just wait here. That's fine,
Kazuya said, looking up into the storm clouds. The rain continued to thicken when it was already at typhoon level.
At this rate, we'll be completely underwater here in a couple of hours.
Then a silver bolt of lightning struck down, different from what arced through the clouds. Silver lights accompanied a massive serpentine body. The being curled down to let a giant of a woman be seen.
What are you doing here, human?
Echidna said in dismissive tones.
I was coming to see who would kill our champion and find you've already killed his target too. What side are you on? Humanity's side,
Kazuya replied, leveling his katana at her.
Which means you too will be slain, so you stop bringing monsters into the world.
She screamed, but that would not stop them. The rain continued to pour down over the whole world. The cold rain fell mercilessly down, even over him. Alan wore thick robes, but they didn't keep him warm. Instead, they weighed him down, anchoring him to this place. His breath was white in the air, the darkness and the rain kept him enclosed in spite of being out in the open. As he could no longer see out to the path where Haniel had stayed, he could only hope that the angel was there, still protecting him as their Messiah. Or perhaps, guarding him, like a prisoner. Looking down, he saw the flow of water, how it moved quicker along lines engraved on this platform. The heretic mansion place that Kazuya used to fuse demons used magic circles like this. But this one reminded him more of their meeting with Goto. He had covered his room with markings meant to help his summoning of Lucifer, the demon lord who had been sealed away from the world some time ago. And when he happened to look out when a lightning bolt brightened the area, he could faintly see glowing lines on the tower up to the sunburst cross. They would continue on below, across the rooftops of the grand cathedral's various structures. All focused here where the sacrifice should be. That's how it was then. When they said he was a lamb, they meant it in this way. And he was effectively trapped here, cold, hungry from however long he had been out here praying, alone except for an angel he didn't see who barred the one path from this place aside from going off the unguarded edge. The demons were going to send Jin up here to kill him too, not knowing that they were playing right into the plan. Would it really matter which one of them died? Or perhaps, the plan was for them both to perish here. There was a tale in the old scriptures where God asked a man to sacrifice his only son to him. The father must have been devastated. But in those days, such acts were normal and greatly honored. When the two got to the place, God then stopped the father from actually killing his son. He explained it as a test of faith and offered a wild goat to be sacrificed instead. God did not want human sacrifices made to him. There were no further requests like that made within the scriptures, old or new. But this. And there was the more well-known tale of the Great Flood, where mankind had grown so wicked that God saw fit to wipe the slate clean. But he saved a few who were true to him and helped them to survive it. When the waters receded, he sent a rainbow as a promise to not flood the world again. Not only that, but God himself grew more forgiving over time, until he sent his own Son, the first Messiah, to teach humanity how to live better lives and eventually to sacrifice himself in atonement for their sins. But it wasn't the same. It was worse, as the world had already been razed with nuclear fires, now to be washed out with this torrential rain. More personally, Alan hadn't known the intent was to sacrifice him for this summoning, or that it would come so soon after his second revival. It was only being out here and noticing the way this was set up that he realized it fully. This was not right. Being out here, he also could see clearly what had been wrong with his meeting with God. Alan had confided in God for many years, about his worries, his fears, his struggles to fit in. The God he prayed to would know about all that, the God he believed in would have encouraged him before passing on this massive responsibility to him. If so, he might not have cracked under all this pressure. And it wouldn't have been a pair with little faith in the Messiah Church who came to support him if he still did. This was not for the God he believed in. Alan knew that for certain. But what did he do now? He could leave this place, although he'd have to fight Haniel when the angel realized he meant to quit the summoning. But could he really do that? The angel probably didn't feel the hunger, the cold, and the weariness that Alan was feeling now. The Kodachi of light wouldn't help against an angel, like it hadn't helped with this dark and cold. And Alan hadn't fought demons on his own, there had always been someone with him, someone stronger. And whoever was orchestrating this was able to summon this immense storm that seemed like it might never end. There was still something he could rely on, someone he had faith in.
God, my God, I need you more than ever,
Alan prayed quietly.
If it pleases you, let me prove the truth to all and stop the false one who has taken your name. I still believe in you, my confidant and my one true Lord.
Light filled him then, warming his body back up. It was the light that accompanied his miracles. Maybe he had been doing work for his God already? Your faith and wisdom has led you to part of the truth. Yuji, you have endured where many others would have given in, you have kept faith but not become blinded by it. Your brother comes for you. There was a twinge in his heart. Only his mother called him by that name since he took Alan upon being baptized by the Messiah Church. By the church that was going to let him be sacrificed and drove people away by condemning them.
My brother?
Yuji asked. In response, the rain shifted directions as if he was looking through a kaleidoscope. Many images scattered through the rain, past, present, and future. A few came sharper, going back across his mother, a father he had never met, a brother he had met but hadn't recognized, and something very far in the past that briefly gave Yuji a headache seeing it. Would you pray for your brother?
Jin.
He pulled his hands closer to his chest and bowed his head. Even when he closed his eyes, those images were still surrounding his mind. There was far more than he had guessed at going on.
Yes. I pray that he can let the goodness in his heart show.
Yuji continued to pray there, no longer feeling alone. The water was splashing above their knees now. Kazuya kept hold of Yuka's hand to make sure they didn't get swept away from each other. With walls of water pounding down on them, it was impossible to hear anything but the torrent. He kept his comp close to his chest, trying to keep the screen clear so he could follow the map back to the nearest terminal. It was within the radio tower that the Messians had been using for their broadcasts. Finally, a dark form of a doorway could be seen ahead. Kazuya grabbed the handle and pulled on it, the weight of the water pushed against it. They had to get in. While Yuka still knew that teleporting spell, the cathedral was protected from entry that way. And the bridge would certainly be untethered by now. He shifted his right hand so that Yuka could still hang on to his elbow, then called out one of his new demons. Then he put his hand over his headset, hoping that helped.
Orochi, bust down this door.
The eight-headed snake hissed against the torrent, waiting on them to move aside. He then lowered 3 of his heads and bashed the door in. Without being asked, he curled his body around to block out some of the water that immediately rushed into the tower. They still got pulled in. Yuka tugged on him trying to brace both of them. Kazuya caught the doorframe with his left hand, hanging on a moment to let the movement slow. Once they were steady again, he put his hand on the headset to add,
"Thanks, I'll call you back in a moment."
Then they hurried inside. Due to the flood, the power was out inside. But other terminals worked in spite of their rooms being cut off from everything in the devastated landscape. Surely this one would be able to get them away even in these conditions. The water followed them into the terminal room, spilling down into a trench with a drain. Had that been there originally? Not that it mattered now, they were staking their lives on this. Thankfully, the terminal screen lit up once they stood on the plate. He picked out the one labeled Cathedral, Central Floor South. It brought them to a drier room where the only things soaking wet were themselves. After recalling Orochi, he felt like he could relax a little.
"Thank goodness they have a laundromat already set up nearby,"
he said, trying not to fling too much water around as he moved off the plate.
"We should probably change in here. I've got some sealed clothes from the academy into your storage, they should fit us so we can clean the rest,"
Yuka said.
"Thanks,"
he said, but then had a thought of what would be sealed there.
"Are they uniforms?"
When she laughed, he rolled his eyes.
"Well, we do want the people gathered here to trust us. It'll be great,"
she said, smiling eagerly. When they came out of terminal room, a group of people in the hall looked their way. From the clerical robes on some of them and symbols with the others, they were messiahs, or pretending to be.
"Where did you come in from?"
one of the priests asked them.
"Out in the city,"
Kazuya said honestly.
"Sorry about dripping everywhere, but we were taking care of Ravana and Echidna so they can't back the rest of the demons." "Thank you for that service, sir,"
the priest said, bowing to them with the other priest.
"We'll spread the good news, God should come to us soon. Except Vishnu's dead too, so he can't complete that task,"
he said.
"Oh dear, well..."
The priest furrowed his brows.
"Weren't you saying that our Messiah can handle things, no matter how they turn out?"
one of the women asked in worry.
"He can, but this could take longer,"
the priest said.
"I should pass word of this to our leader. Still, thanks again for your courageous service." "No problem,"
Yuka said. They headed over to the laundromat to get their clothes washed and dried. The 3 central floors of the cathedral had been turned into a massive contained town with many services that the citizens of Tokyo had long gone without. While it was an admirable effort, it just brought up questions of why they couldn't set up these services throughout Tokyo and skip this second cataclysmic event. They would have gotten plenty of followers just for providing fresh clean clothes.
"So who are we challenging first in here to get them to stop messing with people?"
Yuka asked, sitting on one of the unused washers.
"Whoever tries to come into this area first, especially if they come while the 2 of us are trying to take a break,"
Kazuya said, going over to lean on that washer.
"You make a beautiful cop, Yuka."
She smiled at him and played with a bit of his still damp hair.
Maybe, but you're the one that everyone's going to look at and know they can depend on you for safety. Unless they're demons or angels, then they ought to fear you.
She poked his nose too.
Besides, all I can do is imitate you in trying to be a cop.
He grabbed at her hand, smiling when she jerked it away and made him miss.
Nah, you're the best support I can have and I wouldn't want anyone else at my side, whether in battle or just goofing around here doing laundry. Maybe it's only been a week in this life, but I feel like it's been that way forever.
Then an alarm sounded, breaking the moment.
Geez, some people have the worst timing,
she said, hopping off the washer.
Let's find out what's going on,
Kazuya said, although he felt disappointed too at the interruption. As it turned out, the clash between angels and demons had broken out here in the central area. 3 of the demon generals, Surt, Ashtoreth, and Ariosh, were being pushed back to their basement territory by 3 of the seraphs, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel. Other humans were being called out of the way as the 6 seemed to have no qualms with collateral damage and death in their struggle. If the battle spread out any more, a lot of people could die unnecessarily. Kazuya got the summoning program to analyze the 6 main combatants.
They've been at this a while,
he said, showing Yuka the results.
Ariosh is just about dead, but somehow the seraphs aren't causing enough damage to finish him off. Gabriel is nearly the same way, but she's not relenting either. And it looks as though she'll resist even this sword. So, we take the 2 of them out, then the other 4?
Yuka asked. Nodding, he said,
Surt and Ashtoreth seem better off for the moment. Let's see if we can't snipe Gabriel without being spotted. Then we'll come out, take out Ariosh, and then work on the other 2 demon generals. Once they're finished, we'll take out the other 2 seraphs when they think they can relax their guard. She's coming,
Yuka whispered, stepping back. They had a pillar that jutted out of the corner for some cover. Most of them hadn't noticed, but Gabriel would probably spot them soon. As he was better trained for it, Kazuya took his gun and watched the weakened seraph closely. There was enough noise with the rest of the battle that this should be covered. Hopefully. When she got in a spot that she could easily turn her head and spot them, Kazuya fired and took out Gabriel in one shot. Then it was time to carry out the rest of his plan. End of chapter.